Jimerson. Welcome to Speak Up St. Louis.
Appreciate it.
Hey man, thanks for coming on. This has actually been a little in the making, so it's really exciting to be able to have you on because I know you've been watching the podcast, just following it, and we've had conversations about it, and so I'm really appreciative of you making the time to come hang out with some cool kids like Trey and I.
Yeah. The pleasure's mine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, so I would just say let's go ahead and get into it. If you want to start by telling the folks that are listening who you are and what it is that you do.
So that's kind of a loaded question, to be honest with you, because, if we get into the professional aspect of what I do, I could talk for a while because I wear a lot of hats.
Mm-hmm.
But my name's Lee, Herman Lee Jimerson II. Everyone calls me Lee. When I have a son, he'll be Trey because he'll be the third, Lord willing. But born and raised here in St. Louis. I went to school. It's St. Louis. We got to talk about where I went to high school, right? So I went to Ladue. Kind of grew up in the Ladue School District area. We could talk about that for a while too, because there's some nuances about St. Louis.
Right.
Went off to college, played baseball. Got a marketing degree, studied business, and then got into the finance world. I'll talk about that in a second. But I've always kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit. My parents are business owners, so they're really involved in the real estate business, and they also own a law firm. So growing up, I always saw what it was like to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
I saw all the pros of it.
Mm-hmm.
The flexibility of your time, your schedule, the income, the opportunity, the impact, the notoriety. But also there's some challenges of being an entrepreneur, and I saw all that as well. And I guess God put that vision inside my heart that said, you're destined for this path too. So, fast forward through school, a lot of stuff there. I got into the financial world, and today I own a wealth management firm, a small firm based out of Chesterfield, and that's what I do. I'm a financial advisor.
Nice. And so, yeah, like you said, that's a loaded journey, background, and there's so many points and parts of that I think we can dive into. And it doesn't have to be in any particular order, but I'm curious on a couple things, because one, when I originally just remember, meeting and talking with you around just different things around wealth management and just managing the finances. One of the things that really stood out to me in particular was that, when I really thought about it, I was like, one, I don't know if I know too many young black folks that are in wealth management. And there's probably there's a ton of reasons, probably a part of that as well too, in regards to some of the representation of the work. But I'm just curious on, because you talked about some of the entrepreneurial work that your parents are doing, and seeing them being able to excel in those places and spaces.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious on what some of that drive was for you to step into something that you're like, maybe, all right, I don't see too many folks that look like me necessarily that are doing the work, but I've seen what my parents have done, and my parents have provided me the space to know that I have the confidence to be able to step into this, into the space. Because I feel like a lot of times when folks think wealth, finances, or just wealth in general, they're thinking of a much older individual, sitting in that position saying, okay, I have 30, 40 years of experience. Here's what you need to be doing. Whereas I feel like some of our conversations have been much more in the perspective of the contemporary and also looking at it from this moment right here to long term, rather than maybe some of the ideas of, oh, here's where I'm at and we're going to work backwards from there. So,
man, that's so true. as a financial advisor, our first step is to really help our clients identify what their goals are.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds so cliche, but that's really the first place we have to start. Where are you at right now? Where do you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
And then how can we bridge that gap? So, we have to begin with the end in mind, but at the same time, we can't be so focused on tomorrow that we forget about today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the balance that in financial planning we have to be very aware of and cognizant, because we're working with people. Finances is such a mathematical, analytical, clear-cut design, but at the same time, there's emotions that makes up 100% of every decision.
Right.
So I think my role, the challenge in it, is that I get to work with people. The other side of it is I have to work with people. And people are very emotional. We have specific, I went to go see my doctor today.
Mm-hmm.
I value and I trust what his advice was and is for me to do to be healthy. Everything checked out. We're good.
That's what's up.
But, I know that I can WebMD a lot of things, and I can figure out in the right ballpark, what's going on in my body, what's going on in my mind. But I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
But I do trust someone that's gone to school for it, obtained the right licensing, that's certified to be able to speak, to look into my situation and say, this is what's going on, this is what you need to do now to make sure that you stay on the right path or get on the right path.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I have to do. Anyone in the finance world knows of this name, Nick Murray. But he's kind of one of the goats of financial advising in that space. But he talks about how the financial advising career is one of the most, in fact, the most noble profession. And I truly have a conviction that that's the truth. If you think about it like this is kind of blunt, but a physician can only cure or postpone the inevitable. But the role of a financial advisor is to help come into fruition your aspirations, your dreams,
Mm-hmm.
not just for you, but essentially for everyone that's coming behind you.
Right.
And everyone that went before you, to protect those assets. That's my favorite joke. I won't play on that word too much, but but protect everything that you're building, right? We work so hard to build up our assets. It's another thing to protect it. My clients know I make that joke all the time, but it's about planning for perpetuities, planning for to leave a legacy strategically,
Mm-hmm.
to have generational wealth. And that is something that is so impactful that when I was in school and I was considering, 7 years ago before I stepped into this field, but when I was considering the career, that was probably one of the most attractive things. It was the impact that I could make not only in my family's life, in my clients' lives, but in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And we can take it a step further and say in the black community.
Right. Because
if we go back 100 years ago, like you mentioned, we weren't having these conversations, Q. So there's a lot of purpose in my why that I know as a black man in wealth management. I have to be here.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, I want to be here.
Right. And I think I really appreciate how you said that, because the first thing that came to mind for me is that idea of when purpose and passion meet at that intersection. And to me, that's what it sounds like, the space that you're in, not only just, a calling on your life, but also the purpose to understand the role that you in this workplace, within the community, in particular the black community, but also the passion and the excitement to be able to wake up every morning and say, yeah, This is not what I have to do. This is what I get to do. This is what you're honored to do every day, to be able to touch the lives of others. And I think that's really interesting too, because, you know, as soon as I hear finances, at least, and probably many other folks,
People get tight.
tight, but also too thinking that, you know, it's heavy on the number side, which a part of it is.
Yeah.
But a lot to what you just said is it's so much more in the value of people and purpose. Maybe more so than the numbers, actually, when you're thinking about it at large. Am I on the right path, or is...
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. You know, people by people. Like, a lot of times I get asked today is, are you worried about the evolution of software and AI? Is that ever going to replace you as a financial advisor? And my response is always 1,000% no. We're not going anywhere, because you can type anything into Google, the University of Google, the College of YouTube. You can ask it any question, and it's going to spit out a response for you. But the problem is we don't know if we're asking the right questions. So you can figure out. Okay, let me take a step back. You can go to Nordstrom. You can go to Joseph A. Banks. You can go to some place to get a good quality suit. Is it going to fit you? Absolutely. Is it going to look good? Is it going to be what's right for you? Maybe. But there's a big difference from when I started working with a custom tailor, a clothier, I should say, where I was building a suit that fit my body, that was my design, that was made just for me. You know, so in the world today where there's a lot of influencers, there's a lot of people that are talking about money online, on TikTok, on everything, you know, there's so much good and bad, plenty of that.
There's a lot of information out there.
A lot of information out there. You know, that's what's most valuable, is just making sure that people have a sound sounding board, a resource that's designed, that's intent, that's main priority is to help you make good decisions.
Right. Yeah, it almost sounds too which it probably is you need that guide to help you through it. Because for sure, to your point, you can go try to learn it yourself, but between everything else that goes on in life, how much capacity do you actually have to really fully understand something? And I think that's a part of it that I think sometimes we miss, not just within financial advising or wealth management or wealth building, just in life in general, the thought of, and I think it's also how we've been taught and trained of, oh, it's a pull up by the bootstraps. It's you and you alone. It's individualism, to where it's like, oh, I can go do it all by myself, when in reality, we were never meant or built to do these things alone. I mean, shoot, I can't do this podcast alone.
Yeah.
I don't know half the thing Trey's knows.
Yeah.
You know, and vice versa. So we complement one another in that space. And I feel like that's a lot of what you're talking about as well, too, is that it does take a community of folks to be able to meet and match and even achieve the goals that you have set out for your life. And so having services and help around those things is not a negative thing.
Yeah.
So as you're doing, you know, financial advising, wealth management, one, I guess the question is there a difference between the two? Because I know that we talked about this before the episode, kind of those two different terms. But do you feel like there's a difference between the two? Are they interchangeable in that way?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. So I'll just start using one.
Yes, for both.
Okay,
but.
Great. So when we're thinking about financial advising, you know, obviously you're working with folks in St. Louis, you're working with folks around the country as well too. So I'm curious on, especially when we're thinking about St. Louis, you know, St. Louis, I mean, just from a development standpoint and all the things that are happening is changing very quickly, just even in the last couple years. We've seen a lot of development, new growth, new opportunities here within this market of St. Louis. And so I'm curious on what the landscape is that you're kind of seeing overall from a financial standpoint, and maybe even too, is there anything that you're excited about that's happening in St. Louis that's connected to maybe some of the long-term ideas that you're working around with financial advising?
Yeah, yeah. Gentrification. I'm just kidding.
Well done.
Um, so that's a loaded question too, man. But there's so much new development that's going around in St. Louis. You know, like what I love about what I get to do is my job is to understand different professions. Um, you know, as an advisor, my job is also to be the liaison for my clients in different relationships, to kind of quarterback the different relationships that's needed for different things. Whether it's, hey, we're building an estate plan, so you need to connect with an attorney, or there's some tax maneuvers that we're discussing. Let's make sure that you have a CPA on your team that's helping coordinate all this. Make sure we're doing everything compliantly, right? There's in some cases a mortgage lender that needs to step in, or a real estate agent. So many different roles, and my job is to kind of sit at that person's right hand to help them make those decisions. Right? Every CEO needs a CFO,
Right.
so that CEO can be most productive doing what drives revenue for that company. The CFO's job is to make sure that we're essentially protecting the finances of that company. So and being efficient. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that's what I like most about the career. It's I get to understand what different people's responsibilities are professionally,
Yeah.
and when I sit down with mortgage lenders or real estate agents, and they're telling me some of the struggles that's going on in their career, or in their business, or in the industry right now, in the market, right?
Yeah.
I hear some of the same concerns from my clients, but now I'm hearing it from a different perspective, and I will say, like, even as an advisor, it's helped me make a lot of decisions.
Right.
I don't think there's, again, I'm kind of biased here, but I don't think there's a career that provides you with the 3-in-1 aspect of having the income, the independence, and the impact. I call it the 3 I's that you have as a financial advisor. And also the compensation is more so than just financially. The compensation is in terms of just the knowledge that you learn from meeting with people.
Right.
And from a very early point in my business, I found that, one, people trusted me. That's kind of important because you're working with their money. But then two, I got to find out things that were going on in the way people were thinking, whether it was moves that's going on around St. Louis, meeting with people in the banking industry, whether that was, new developments that's going up, like, in the county, in St. Louis City, and just knowing that you can own property in certain areas, or invest in certain areas, or just be involved in certain spaces. I think that's what's really cool.
Yeah, and I think, and I never really thought about that, until you said about how much of the knowledge base that you have to be able to, because it's not like you're serving one type of person with one type of background.
Yeah.
You're dealing with multiple different individuals that have different visions, understandings, backgrounds, cultural, like you're dealing with a lot of different things that you have to be knowledgeable about, because for you to best serve your client or the individual, you also have to know what they're interested in and what also the market and the other spaces and places that they work within as well too.
For sure.
And so to be able to navigate all those different places, to be able to understand, between what are the developments that are going on, how is the market changing, maybe how is that individual's career field changing, so that we can be able to pivot when it's time to pivot potentially, I think is really interesting on how layered that approach is. And it's interesting because even to this point, it's still not even about like all the things we're talking about. Though it is financial based,
Yeah.
everything that we're talking about is understanding the people that you're working with and serving.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
find that very interesting, that how much of like I'm curious, how much of your time would you say, like, do you think is a 50-50 split between some of the real data and the finance part versus like the knowledge base of people
Man.
and and who people are?
I mean, honestly, it's 80-20.
Wow.
And if
I would have
I
never
could say
guessed
it's
that.
100% people, I'd say that. But obviously that's not the case.
Right. 'Cause
But
somebody got to crunch some numbers every now and then.
yeah, I mean, and I could talk about how you can build a business and all that, and how I have the ability to delegate certain matters, but
Right.
my sole responsibility, my priority in how I run my business is just getting in front of the right people
Right.
and talking to people. I want to spend the majority of my time doing that. If I can, make sure that I have the knowledge base to now make sure that our team can employ the right strategies for every account that we manage, for all the products, whatever it is that we're doing in someone's financial plan, because it's always specific to the individual. That's great, but my role and sole priority is make sure that I'm getting to the person.
Right.
So yeah, I mean it's 80-20 because I mean, you can think about our first time we met and
Right.
sat down to talk about your financial planning, or or anybody's initial first meeting with an advisor. It's usually like 10 to 20% of the time we're actually talking about the numbers. Like the majority of the time spent in every discussion is based off of the goals, maybe a little bit of understanding and education around how things work and what needs to be done based off the lay of the land. But it's, hey, what do you want? Okay, this is what we need to be talking about.
Right.
Let's make sure that, okay, so these are your values. All right, this is what's in alignment with your values.
Yep. That's what I was going to say. That sounds like strategic planning at its finest.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. And so to kind of segue some, you talked about some of the education around financial planning. I'm curious based on, just different conversations that you have, maybe even just kind of breaking down some of those terms. What are some of the things, like misconceptions, that you see a lot of within there? Like, you don't have to, because I think there are some things, and what I would hope is that, that folks, as they're listening, can be able to take some of those things. So like, oh, I learned that term that maybe I didn't really understand before this, but now I have a better understanding of. Are there like a top 3 like misconceptions that you kind of see within the work that you do?
Trying to get me in trouble.
Not really. I just,
that's cool.
I just want to give some folks a couple things of like, hey, this is what this actually is.
Yeah. Now we're gonna have some fun.
Right. Break it down. Drop a couple gems. Bless us with a couple gems real quick.
All right. So let's first talk about 35% of Americans work with a financial advisor, based off the data from last year.
35%.
That's 2022.
That's low.
And that's higher than I thought, to be honest.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean it's surprisingly low, but it's higher than I thought. And you know what's funny about that? When you look at the stats on millionaires, about 70% of millionaires have financial advisors. And millionaires by net worth, not millionaires by income, right? I know plenty of people making millions that aren't
They ain't pocketing it.
So making a lot of money is totally different from having a lot of money and from being a good steward of your money. It's another thing we could probably talk a lot about, but stewardship. I think there's a huge misconception around when to quote quote hire a financial advisor, when to start working with a financial advisor. And if you make money, you should probably start talking to a financial advisor. If you can
Right.
fog a mirror and you go to work and need to do something with your money and you don't want to spend it, you want to be a good steward of it, you should probably work with a financial advisor. Whether you're making $50,000 or whether you're making $500 million. I firmly believe that you should be working with a financial advisor. Now, are there some Are there some circumstances where you could probably get by on certain things? Yeah, maybe. But again, we don't know what we don't know, and you can only spread your time out so much evenly. Um, you can only do so many things well. He who chases many rabbits gets none, right? So it's good to have a team that can look at your whole picture holistically and comprehensively, right? We're, as a fiduciary, meaning we have a legal obligation to do what's in your best interest. You should work with an advisor that is a fiduciary. They're going to look at everything from your budget, your cash flow, what's coming in the door, what's going out the door. It doesn't matter how much someone's making. I always spend a lot of time on understanding someone's budget. What's coming in the door, what's going out. Because then that lets us know what we can actually work with,
Right.
or where we need to make some adjustments in some cases. A wise man once said, more money, more problems. And as you start to make more money, you also start to run into one of the other big misconceptions, or maybe not misconception, but a misunderstanding, and that's Uncle Sam, taxes. Where taxes come into play is how you can keep more money over time in your family, in your business, in your estate, and not give it all to Uncle Sam. And that's being really efficient. And what I help our clients do is be very strategic on how they position their wealth. Did you know you can actually save and invest more money but have less in the end because of taxes? Versus if you position some of those dollars in different areas and you're saving and investing less, you can actually have more. It's all about where it's positioned. So, I get into conversations around different accounts. I won't talk too much about that. Let me know if you have any questions about it. Go to my website. But
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. But the difference between like a traditional IRA and a Roth, pre-tax versus post-tax. We love Roth IRAs because you're putting money away on an after-tax basis. Your money is growing completely tax-free, and you can pull it out completely tax-free. You've already paid taxes on it when it hit your bank account. If you're a W-2 employee, if you're a business owner, well, hopefully you're filing your taxes and you pay taxes on it. If you make more money, there's some limitations on that too. A lot of times people aren't aware that there's limitations on how much money you can make and how much money you can contribute to certain accounts. So that's where it also comes into the strategy of making sure that you're being intentional, upfront, and proactive. The IRS is your silent partner at the end of the day. I mean they're gonna get a cut. It's just how much of the cut are you going to allow them to get. And the IRS is listening. The IRS has joined the chat.
Right. Right. All of a sudden they start following the podcast.
Right. All of a sudden. But, like on the other side, pre-tax traditional accounts are great. And it's not one's better than the other. It's just understanding what's going to fit your situation the best. If you're making $100,000 and you can, as of 2024, put $7,000 into an IRA, if you can defer $7,000 to not get taxed today and get taxed at a later point in the future, well, now on paper that year you made $93,000, not $100,000, right? So if you can defer some of that, that might make sense for your situation. But if you're young and if you're not even at the peak of your earning years, well, you probably might just want to get the taxes out the way up front, because you're going to make a lot more money over the next 30, 40 years. And who knows what taxes are going to be like in retirement. So that's a big misunderstanding. A lot of times I see people contributing to both pre-tax and Roth 401ks, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's good to have a mixture, but again, it's also good to have some consultation so you know that you're doing the best thing for your situation. Going back to that analogy, having a custom suit, tailored suit is totally different from getting one off the rack. And I think the last misconception is just I think a lot of times people are hesitant to work with a financial advisor because they think that you have to have a certain amount of money to work with them. Um, if you don't have any money, no money to advise, right? No, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
We want to help you get there. We're investing in you just as you're investing your money, and we're helping you manage it strategically, of course. So, you know, there's no cost just to meet with someone. There's no cost to meet with someone, at least with me. I will say there are different models out there of how different advisors work. Um, Fee-based planning is one model where, it doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter, if you take the recommendations or not, but there's a fee that you're being sent in an invoice for the time that's being spent to actually give recommendations speaking to your situation. And for some people, time is money, right? So
Right.
in some situations, usually a lot significantly higher income and higher net worth, those situations make a lot of sense. Because a lot of times when I'm in that market, people have already worked with other advisors, and it's more so, hey, let's get a second look, let's get a third look. So hey, okay, send me over your stuff, and this is what we should do.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, just like you put money into a 401k at work, for most people, right? There's a fee, there's an administrative expense that's calculated into that account. So you're paying for that advice and management and the facilitation of that within your plan that's being managed through your company. So same thing when you invest money into a fund with an advisor or a brokerage account,
Mm-hmm.
company. It's worked into the fee, if you will, is worked into that account. So the advisor is incentivized to make sure that they make you money because they make money, as you make money, everyone wins. It's a win-win.
Right.
So, I think most people just have the misconception that you have to have a certain amount of money to work with you,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not the case at all.
Yeah, and even to that point, I'm wondering if some of the misconceptions is maybe even in part of the lack, maybe sometimes of financial literacy and education as well too. So because folks have been told, oh, if you don't have, because there's the perception of, oh, I don't have enough money to be able to put to a side. And for some folks, that very much is the reality. For like at least their reality is that I don't make enough because I already am struggling between paying this bill or that bill. And so I'm curious on what's that connection between maybe some of the misconceptions of those things and maybe how that maybe even connects to the lack of literacy and educations around it, because we know that a lot of schools aren't teaching that, but also too, some of those financial conversations aren't even happening within family households as well too, not even to a consistent basis for you to be knowledgeable of what's going on. And so from your experience and thought, what are some of the things that help maybe connect some of those gaps? Like or maybe in a perfect world,
Mm-hmm.
what would you recommend to be able to connect some of those gaps so that when we're looking at our broader communities, folks have more literacy around, finances and being able to utilize them properly?
You asked a lot of loaded questions.
I know, I'm sorry. It's my job.
So there's so many different pieces of that I could break down from my perspective, of course. But in my experience, finances wasn't necessarily a dinner table discussion in my family. It wasn't a comfortable conversation growing up. And I think that's pretty similar for most families. We could take it a step further and talk about the schools and how we spend 18 years of our life, and in some of those classes we learn how to write a check, and I don't know how relevant that is for most people today. Considering I out of the hundreds of clients my team and I have, I think I only have one client, actually three, because they're all in the same family, that pay by check.
That is
So, sorry if you're watching. But, it's like we learn a lot about accounting. Okay, most people aren't going to go to accounting, go to school to be an accountant. Or most people aren't going to go work as an accountant. We learn about micro and macroeconomics, and that's important, understanding inflation and GDP. But what's actually applicable to our life and our situation on a daily basis, and that's one day making sure that you can actually retire, that you're not going to have to work forever. And I don't think there's enough talk about that.
right.
And the problem stems from sometimes the educators, because, well, first of all, the educational system. Let's start there. Is it designed to show us how to be financially free, financially secure? No.
No, because
That's
it's
why we
not what
have
it's meant to do. This is just a side question to that. Like, did you have financial classes at Ladue?
I had a personal finance class, and like I said, I think we learned how to write a check. I learned how to balance a checkbook, maybe, and I don't remember anything from that class.
So that's, and when I ask that, that's no knock on any school district,
Right.
but it is showing that across the board, for most places and spaces, these things may or may not be happening in a way that it becomes ingrained and almost institutional in how you understand and perceive the world. Because I think probably as individuals, we probably have more concepts around the value on what we spend our money on and what we find as value, or in regards to, all right, am I going to buy this product or this product, more so than in the long-term investment of, do I need to, in regards to what type of account do I need to put my money in for it to grow. And so I think that's a really big shift to go from thinking of your money as, access to spend rather than access to save.
Man, so let me rip on that for a second. So, I mentioned how one of the first things I do with everyone is sit down and go through their budget. And I don't even like using the B word. I don't like using the word budget. I like talking about a cash flow analysis, or more importantly, a spending.
Fancy way of saying it.
That's a much more bougie way to say it.
Three whole words to say budget.
Right.
Give it to me straight, Lee. It's called a budget.
But, a cash flow analysis is a sexy way to say it, but more importantly, a spendings plan is what most people need. Because I'm a spender. I know the way I'm wired. I know the way most people are wired. My fiance, if you're watching, I know you're wired as a spender, right? But it's so easy to spend money, and we have all these obligations demanding our check every single month. Rent's due, mortgage is due, utilities, your car note, your auto insurance payment, student loans.
Don't have a pet too.
Right. The grocery store, you got to put gas in your car. Like, all these demands where if you don't pay for those things, there's a negative consequence that follows up pretty quickly. Whether your lights get turned off, something gets taken away, or something pretty quickly happens, or you can't get to what you need to get to. But when it comes to not saving money, there's not an immediate consequence. It's more so a delayed one, deferred, if you will. The deferred consequence is you can't retire on time. When an emergency pops up, you're going in debt, or deeper in debt for most people, right? And it's a vicious cycle. So what I always talk about with people is like, hey, what do majority of Americans have from an asset perspective when it gets to retirement? It's their home, and it's their 401k, their retirement account. And the commonalities that you see between those two things is every single month you never skipped a beat. For 30 years, you had a 30-year loan. 30 years later, that home is paid off because you paid it every single month, never missed it. Hopefully, you never miss it. Sometimes you do, you know. But for some people, life is hard. In a 401k, well, every time you get paid, money goes directly into that account. So you fast forward 30 years, you now have a lot of money saved up in your 401k because that money was invested. We're not going to talk about how it's invested, what it's invested in, asset allocation, all those fancy jargon words we could talk about, but diversification, right? But, you know, you had money going into an account that you did not touch until the age of 60. You have money going into an asset that builds equity that you own after 30 years. The commonality is you are consistently paying into something that is an asset versus the majority of people, they're paying into things that aren't assets, or they're depreciating assets. But we don't understand that. Or maybe it's just a mindset of not prioritizing the dollars and the B word in the budget. So I like to use analogies a lot. How can we make our money work for us, right? What does that mean? People say it all the time. I want to make my money work for me. Well, let's first look at your budget to see what money is unemployed currently. What's coming in the door? What's going out the door? What do we have left over that does not have a job description? And how can we put those dollars to work? And if it's a small baby step, we'll take that small baby step. My job is to hold you accountable and make sure that as we take those small baby steps, those steps get bigger and bigger. I'm going to the gym after this, and you better believe it's leg day. I'm not going to start off with 300 pounds on the squat rack. I'm going to start small, maybe just a bar.
Gotta warm up first.
Gotta warm up.
Yeah, Lee, thanks for breaking that down. Just not only just some of the examples and the premise of looking at the short term versus long term. I think for me, I don't know if you've seen these commercials, but it's generally it's generally an older couple, and they're like, this is you 50 years in the future or something because you didn't put away your money or something. Like I don't know what the name of that company is that does those commercials, but every time I see it, I'm like, like it does its job because it makes me stop and think about not just necessarily what I'm doing with my finances, but I think the larger conversation of how am I positioning my life to be where I want to down the road, so that I have, to what you'd also said too, and I know that's something that Trey and I talk about as well too, the financial freedom, or the freedom to be able to go and do the things that you want to in life rather than being tethered to or reliant on a system for essentially eternity.
Yeah, man, that's so funny. You know, like there's so much stuff out there about saving money and how you can be more strategic. At the end of the day, like, I'm not the person that's going to be like, hey, don't spend that money at Starbucks. You know, that $5 that you spend, you could turn into X amount in the future. Like, okay, yeah, of course. Obviously, don't spend all your money on random stuff.
Right.
But at the same time, like, spend your life living. Plan for tomorrow. Be prepared for tomorrow, but live for today. And, you know, I think that's also the misconception is, you know, when you sit down with an advisor, they're going to take all your money. No, you're in the driver's seat.
You're like the troll under the bridge or something like that.
Give me that toll. There's a tax to cross.
It's a fee.
Right.
The Gross sisters from the Proud family.
Oh man.
Hands out.
Yeah. So, you know, it's take the small steps that you can take today. Be aware of where you should be, and that's really what you can get out of the clarity you can get out of working with someone. But you know, take small baby steps.
Yeah. So spend your life living. I know for myself, I've been thinking about that a lot, just in regards to making sure that my life is multifaceted, that I'm learning new things, that I'm experiencing new things. And so I'm curious for yourself, because I know that this work takes up a lot of your time.
Yeah.
You're busy, and so I'm curious on when you're not. I know you have other, you have other responsibilities right now as well too. But
My
what,
responsibility is solely to my clients.
right? So you busy planning stuff right now, outside of work too. But what are like? How do you? What's that balance for you? Like, so what are you doing outside of the financial planning, meeting with clients, networking? What does that downtime for you look like?
Yeah, man. I I'm a simple guy. I think I refer to myself as a high functioning introvert. Um, I'm extroverted. I can display those characteristics and qualities in most settings, but I need my downtime to recharge and reset. So, um, talking to people on average 5 to 8 times a day. Three on a good day. No, I'm just kidding. But having a lot of back-to-back meetings is kind of draining. So, you know, I like to recharge by just, my fiance and I, we and taking the dog to the park, going on a walk. Um, I play softball with my dad.
Nice.
Pops has a team. We play every Friday out in Bridgeton here in St. Louis. Shout out BMAC. Um, and I played baseball growing up. I played baseball in college. It's one of those things that I still love to do. Now it's softball. 'Cause it's a beer league kind of team. I've yet to drink a beer on the field because I just respect the game so much.
You're a purist at
I'm a
heart.
purist. But in the parking lot, no, I'm kidding. But yeah, I play softball. Um, Honestly, I spend a lot. Like people think I'm exaggerating, but I spend a lot of my time at the church. Um, like I'm on the worship team. I sing. I play guitar. We talked about instruments outside of this too.
The viola.
I played viola for the last 20 years.
Multifaceted brother. We love to hear it. We love to hear it.
Yeah. So I'm super involved with my church. With the worship team singing, glorifying God on the weekends, and we have Tuesday night service. I'm there every Tuesday if I'm in town. I do travel a lot for fun. That's another side of things. Um, and every Thursday night we have Bible study. So sometimes I'm leading, sometimes I'm just involved in the group, in the small group discussion, most of the time actually. And yeah, I mean that's like where my friends are. Most of my friends are. It's funny, like being an adult is hard, right? Because you make friends with what you do on a daily basis. It's kind of like in school growing up, right? Your friends are the people that you're in classes with, that you ride the bus with, that you
Right. That
you
you're
did
doing life with.
Wow, that was cool. But yeah, I mean, like today, it's funny because one of my favorite questions to ask people, not to bring this back to like financial advising, but I get introduced to people all the time. One of my favorite questions to ask people is, hey, who was, or if you were to get married, who's going to be in your wedding party? And that makes you think, like, who are your homies, who's around you? And I have a very diverse friend group, both by pigmentation and by and by background. And I think that's I love that. I think that's what's so beautiful about St. Louis. It's a melting pot full of different cultures, communities. Like being a black man and playing orchestra growing up was its own like nuance of its own, right? There wasn't too many. There's not too many black people in finance. There's not too many black people in orchestra. So, yeah, I mean, I just like to hang out and glorify God when I can, all the time and everything I do, hopefully, and take it easy.
Yeah, no, I think that's great that you one have the awareness of the balance needed to be able to go and accomplish the things that you accomplish by day, but then also having the right support system, having the right faith base, in regards to being grounded in it and rooted in it as well too. So to be able to have those things is really, it's really exciting and refreshing to hear as well. I'm curious. So you play baseball and softball, but are you keeping up with baseball as well too? Do you watch a lot of it?
So I'm that guy where um, I love to play the sports. I don't watch it that much.
Okay.
I'm kind of weird like that. Um, unless it's like basketball, if it's playoffs time.
Sounds like a hands-on approach where it's like I
Yeah.
got to be doing it to really be invested in it. But
Yeah, I was kind of. I'm like.
you like to be
probably,
on. You like to be on the field. You don't like to be in the stands.
Yeah, yeah. Like I'm. So I was that guy where, growing up, I was never like the person collecting cards, talking about sports.
Mhm.
I'm a nerd at heart. Like my fiance will tell you, I'm like the biggest nerd she's ever met. Like I love Star Wars. Yes, May 4th
be
was.
with you.
May the 4th be with you. That was all day. I was watching Star Wars, bro.
Like, how many movies did you get through?
Just that day.
Yeah.
Well, I actually watched the new season of
Okay.
Tales of the Empire. So I was watching that. There was a six episode series that came out. I was watching that for a minute.
So I gotta ask you, so there's the OG six, the six, and then there's
You're gonna
the
get me in trouble.
and then there's the the
There's the original trilogy, and then the pre. Okay.
Yeah, I'm curious on when Disney got their hands on it, how you felt about those last three. Did you enjoy them? Did you not? Oh, he didn't enjoy them.
Respectfully, George Lucas. Period.
We'll leave it at that.
I like what Disney is doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're losing focus of what Star Wars is and what it's rooted in.
They need somebody. They need people there to really keep them on focus, strategy, planning. They need an advisor. They need an advisor.
That would be cool. That would be amazing. That would be a dream come true.
All of a sudden, he stops everything else. And what do you do every day? Oh yeah, I'm a Star Wars advisor.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
that would be great. Like, so it's interesting, and I think I talked about it before on an episode, but I was at a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation conference, and we were doing this sub kind of programming thing where we have like small tables essentially. And one of the things that I found really profound about that was the facilitator asked the question of, to everybody, if money wasn't a thing and, everything in life was good. You didn't have to worry about all the other things that we have to, that idea of, who you are, who you're being and who you're becoming, and that balance of the two. And so, one of the examples was, I'm a program manager right now, but who I want to become is a strawberry field gardener, essentially, like a strawberry farmer. And I was like, that's kind of dope. And so then the question she asked was, well, then why, then how are you keeping that vision and that goal in mind at all times? So just even to hear the passion around oh yeah, I want to be an advisor for Star Wars, even though we're just joking around about the idea, I think is really interesting about that idea of how do you keep your passions and the other things that you enjoy about life at the forefront of life, because it's so easy for things to get lost within just the everyday. Some of it's just the mundane parts of life, just period, but also some of it is just life is stressful and hard, and there's anxiety and all the other things that we have to experience. And so it's kind of cool to be able to open that up to oh yeah, I'm down with Star Wars, and being able to talk about those type of things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Just going back to that idea of doing life with people that you would naturally do life with, because of what you're involved in. I think a lot of who I am was rooted in how I was raised, and sports. That was my dad and I's connection, essentially, that and music. So I got involved in music at a very early age. I actually used to be like a big dancer. I danced semi-professionally for some time. Don't get me started on that. But
Yeah, I'm not, but it's like I'm learning more things about you today Lee, in front of a mic. This is great.
I mean, back in middle school, like if there was a bar mitzvah going on, your boy was there, and I was killing on the dance floor.
Oh, I need somebody. I know somebody got videos. I need whoever got the videos. I need them expeditiously.
It's out there, man. But like I love. It's like I think I'm a simple person. In terms of dress and attire, I could be wearing the bummiest clothes, but you always see me with a nice watch on, and maybe a necklace. Not like blinged out, but you always see me with some subtle. I like a nice suit, and I like a nice car. I don't need fancy things. I don't need an amazing fancy house. But I like a car. I like a cool car collection. I like a cool watch collection. I collect those. And it's funny because like I work with now a lot of entrepreneurs that I share those same traits with. So like I work with people that own car customization shops, auto body shops, and people that collect watches. And when we're looking at their balance sheet, like those are their assets that they're sharing with me. Like, hey, do you consider my watch collection a list of assets? I'm like, how much are we talking? It kind of depends, but people that are in the music industry, people that are in the sports industry. It's just you do life with the people that you work with. You do life with the people that you would naturally do life with.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you talk about it very humbly in the sense of a simple, you're a simple person that like, that enjoys the things that you enjoy. But I think from what I'm hearing and also about your experience too, is that I think there's a humbleness about you, in the sense of, not to say that your life isn't simple in that way, but more so in the sense of, I think you find fulfillment in the passions in the other areas. So it's like, yes, you collect watches, but it's not about the watch itself. It's more about the passions that you have around those things as well too. And so finding those ways and those moments to be connected to the things that you enjoy, and also other people that have the same interest as you, I think is really cool. Like, because a lot of folks have an interest for something and it's but they don't share it with anybody else, so there's not a larger communal experience that happens around that. And so I think that's important for that kind of that interconnectivity of that. I guess maybe it's even that idea too of that somebody else finds value in the things that you're interested in, rather than, oh, it's my little niche thing kind of in the closet. That, no, I like that. That's cool. Let's talk about it, because now you've opened up somebody to a totally different conversation or a way of expressing themselves that they might not otherwise have done anyway. So.
Yeah. We want to bring everything out the closet, man. So.
Right. Open that joint up.
Just throw it out. Just throw it out. But yeah, I mean that's. I mean, not to go too deep here, but like, I love like genuine connections with people.
Yeah.
And
I can tell.
That's what I love about what I get to do. Is like when I work with someone, I'm working with that person. Mm-hmm. Like I might be distracted. I'm a squirrel. I have ADHD. But if I spend an hour, if I have an hour blocked off of time on the calendar, I am 100% committed to that person in that time. Investing into who they are now, who they want to be.
Yeah, Lee. Like, and it's so exciting to hear about all these different things that you're into and are passionate about. And I think the words that kind of come to mind, even going back to what I was just saying earlier, is like, it's refreshing to hear somebody feel so full about life. And so you being able to open up and share, like, because of course there's what you do by profession by day. You didn't have to share that, oh yeah, I love Star Wars and other things like that, but that's who you are. And so being able to share that fullness, not just with me, but for everybody that's listening, I think it's really important, because I think that's something that Trey and I really try to accomplish, is just telling real, authentic stories about the folks that live and make up this cultural fabric. And guess what, y'all? Star Wars and viola and softball playing. What else am I missing out? And watches and cars and all those type of those interests.
And faith. Yeah.
And faith as well too. All those things make up the culture of who we are. And so I guess what I'm getting at too is don't think that your niche interest is not valuable enough to talk about or share with or find community with here in St. Louis. It's here, it's happening, and you just have to find the right folks that give a damn about what you care about.
That's so good.
So I appreciate that, because it might have seemed just like a little goofy thing, but in reality, like, that's how we make better connections with one another as a whole. So I really do appreciate you sharing all the multi layers of interest that you have on top of the responsibility that you have to others as well too.
Man, I mean, we live in a society today where, like, you can monetize literally anything, right? I've had the privilege to work with some content creators, some social media influencers, and just like understanding the different interests that everyone has.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool to know that you can make money off of whatever you're interested in because someone else is going to share that same interest and you have an audience. So if you just make that voice visible or audible, I guess, if you say, for people to grasp that and whether it's like me and Star Wars, like if you look at my YouTube right now, you will see like who Lee is. My algorithm knows me so well. It might even know me better than my fiance. Right? It's like money, cars, Star Wars. No kidding, it's all Star Wars. And like entrepreneurship, like real estate, business stuff, taxes, right? Like that's stuff that I've developed a desire to want to see and learn more about. And I just think it's so cool that you can do that.
Right. Yeah.
And you have to hide from it now.
Yeah, and you have the access to it. It's readily available. I mean, there's multiple platforms where you can find this information on. And so I guess it's more so that thought of how do you want to your point, how you want to share your thought, your voice, and just, I guess, that confidence of knowing that, whether you're the only one in the space or you're one of many in the space, that there's the opportunity to share. And so that's what I'm hoping people also get from this as well too, is that share that weird thing that you think is weird but everybody else finds cool.
Yeah.
It changes perspective. So,
man, I mean, I have it's funny because like in my home office, I have a lamp that is a R2-D2 lamp. Star Wars fans
that's
know.
Cool.
Only the real know.
Only the real know.
And when you see that lamp, it just shouts me. And I have it very intentionally in my background. One, because it looks dope. It's the coolest thing in the world. But it actually works as light. It gives light. But second, because if other people see that and they ask me, like, is that R2-D2 in the background? Mm-hmm. You better believe it is. Yeah. Like, I want that to be a conversation starter.
Yeah, you've opened the door.
It's intentional.
You've opened the door to share more about who you are. And also, whether it's a client or anybody, you've built a level of comfortability as well too. You provided a space to say, hey, I'm coming to this meeting, this networking, this conversation as who I am. And so hopefully with the folks that you talk with, that begins to bring down some of the wall or some of the dance that you probably do with initial folks that are trying to figure out who you are, what you're about. Do you have a level of integrity, responsibility, etc.?
I love that you just used the word integrity.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 4 values: professionally, personally. 4 values that we operate as a business. Number 1, it's faith. Every decision that we make is rooted in faith. We believe that this is our business as a financial advisor, and how we can help our clients is through a method of servitude. We want to first serve those people that we're in front of, and that's rooted in my Christian values. That's always going to be who I am. And I want my business to be a platform that's first a ministry that can help other people. The second thing is integrity. Knowing that everything that we're doing is from a good place. Third is excellent. Everything we're going to do is going to be sharp. It's going to be clean. We have to represent that in our community here in St. Louis, for one. As a black man, whether I'm black or white, whatever, that's how I was raised, is be excellent in everything. So you're gonna feel that from our business as well. But also to keep things simple, right? Like, finances is such a taboo topic. Politics, religion, finances. Like, whoa, don't talk about those things. And again, there's a lot of pushback around it because, well, it's not something that we talk about at the dinner table. It's not something that we learned a lot about in school. So we want to make it simple. So faith, integrity, excellence, simplicity. Now, professionally, personally speaking, I call it the 4 Fs. I jokingly say there's a 5th F. Faith, of course. Finances, fitness, family. And that's in no specific order.
Is the 5th one fun?
Food.
I was like, there's something here.
Yeah. I mean, we could say the 6th one is fun. I like that.
Okay.
But I like to eat, man. Okay. St. Louis is a great foodie town.
Ooh, you got a favorite spot right now? Or maybe a couple favorite spots?
That's a hard one.
Or maybe what have you had recently? I'll make it easier for you. I've been throwing you some fastballs off.
Yeah, throwing me some curveballs, man. I mean, I can't go wrong with showing love to the pizza scene here in St. Louis. So I'm a huge Emo's Pizza guy.
Traditional.
Traditional.
It's okay.
That thin crust. I love. You know, I'm not extremely biased to not give love to the other type of crust. You know, the different thicknesses, if you will. You know, I like it real thick, like Chicago. I like it real thin. Pause. I was gonna say real thin and long, like New York. But you know, I'm a hometown guy, so you know, Emo's is where it's at.
That's what's up.
You know, you can go to Emo's, Fortel's, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. But I would give it a Pasta House next to that.
Pasta House.
Yeah, Pasta House. That was actually one of my I guess technically my second job in high school. They fired me. Still hurts my heart to this day, but I still give them business.
They don't know who they fired.
Look, their biggest loss.
Fumbled the whole bag.
Right. I guess that's 3 of them, right? I gave you 2 pizza joints and Pasta House. So
okay.
What about you?
So for me, where have I been going? I mean, so shout out to Ono, Levels Nigerian Cuisine, down on Washington. That's the spot.
Okay.
Man, I went there. You know, the spot is great. The venue is good. I mean, they just take care of you. That's definitely up there for me. I just had it yesterday, but Soul Taco, that's got a spot in my heart. Steak burrito, no salad mix, scrambled egg, boom, there it is. Go. Is
that a St. Louis original?
No, it's not a St. Louis original, I don't think.
Okay.
They got a few spots. Now, somebody might tell me that I'm totally wrong. So, but if I am. Just let me know. And then another St. Louis joint, shout out to Reg and his team over there at Teatopia. Love going over to Teatopia. Go get me one of the tea-infused smoothies. I'll get me a chicken quesadilla with that sauce.
At Teatopia?
At Teatopia, right over there off Cherokee Street.
Okay.
Yeah, I really rock with them over there. That's good food. So, yeah, those are 3 spots that I could think of off the top, and that's not including. I'm a big sushi person, so
okay. Yeah.
I like Blue Ocean over off of Del Mar. That's something that I really enjoy. And then one other spot, Thai 202 over in the Central West End. I like that as well too. So a few different places, all a little different cuisines there, but yeah, those are some spots that I really enjoyed recently. So
That's what's up.
yeah, man. I mean, we got a great even what we were talking about earlier, just the network and the diversity of all the different things that we have here in St. Louis is really special. To be able to have not just a lot of people would say like the depth and the breadth that we have here in so many different ways, whether that be people, food, you know, different parts of neighborhoods and things. And so it's really cool to be able to see how all these things come together to make up essentially who we are.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so as we are wrapping up, I gotta ask you our final question before we let you go. It's a two-part question, and the first part is, what do you love most about St. Louis? And the second part is, what do you most want to see change? Right, I know. Simple question, loaded.
Yeah.
But you got it. You done made it this far.
That's good. So what do I love most about St. Louis?
Mm-hmm.
I think what I love most about St. Louis is the diversity, the culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so growing up in Ladue, I'm gonna say something here. Don't be mad at me. I'm just a messenger. But the nickname of the school, unfortunately, was LaJew, and it's because there were a lot of Jewish people in the community.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up around, like, I was so versed into the St. Louis community from an early age, and just understanding different people's backgrounds, where I was a minority
Mm-hmm.
in a place where I guess statistically speaking, a majority of some degree. Um, but because of that, I got to learn so many different other cultures and backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, earlier I went to some bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, and I was killing it on the dance floor, and I was used to kind of being the one of few, if not the only one, So whether it was just meeting or growing up with Ethiopian people, Jewish people, Muslim people. There's a lot of I can't think of the name, but there's a lot of brown people here in St. Louis too. Hispanics. Just the culture, it's a melting pot, and it's slept on. Like, it's not like the coast. It's not Florida.
Mm-hmm.
It's not California. We're in the Midwest, but the Midwest is slept on. There's a lot of culture here. So I think flipping that around, I think what I want to see more of is more of that diversity in culture being celebrated,
Mm-hmm.
instead of kind of, I don't want to say put down, but overlooked.
Right.
Because there's beauty in diversity.
Mm-hmm.
There's beauty in culture, and St. Louis has a lot of beauty.
Right. Yeah, not hiding what makes us who we are,
Yeah,
essentially, and being able to put that up and uplift it, and essentially to even to that is to uplift the different stories that make up who we are as well too. And so I think all of those things can happen, will happen, as long as everybody is continuing to find ways to be able to add to that larger story of who we are. Because I think a lot of times we, as St. Louis, we get so caught up, and it's not to say that it's not valid, but we get so caught up on who we've been
mm.
that we're not looking always to the future of who we can become.
Yeah. Let me say something right there.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. In the financial world,
Mm-hmm.
we have this saying, we have this phrase. You might be able to finish my sentence here, but past performance is not indicative of future performance. Just because
Mm-hmm.
that stock, just because that XYZ fund went down or went up, doesn't mean that's what's going to happen next year. Doesn't mean that's what's going to happen in the future. Investing takes faith. There's a reason why there's risk and reward with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Man, I appreciate that because it is. I think that's my hope is I think St. Louis is very much, it's the show me state and all those things, but I think, there's so much value here. There's so many people that are uplifting the community. That's the reward of being able to live here. The risk is us stepping into the full potential of who we can be, not just as individuals, but as a collective. And that takes planning, that takes timing, that takes all the different principles to what you just talked about today to be able to really envision St. Louis and where we want to be 30, 40 years down the road. We don't want to, I don't want a St. Louis that's still working hard on the, to the point of you don't want to be working, into retirement. Well, I don't want St. Louis to be working so hard on the same things that we're talking about today. We should be able to be in a place to where we are allowed to sit back and enjoy St. Louis for everything that St. Louis is. And that to me is the exciting long-term planning. And so, yeah, that's what I'm excited for, is the day we can all look at it and be like, because I think there's two parts of it. I think we're definitely living in the now of it, which is still very exciting. But there also are things that we all are well aware of, whether they're structurally, institutionally as well too, that need to be addressed in a much larger conversation for us to really be able to heal and grow and go to the places that we're meant to. And that takes all of us. So thank you so much, Lee, because I know the work that you're doing is helping, folks individually and also collectively be able to see that full vision, or helping them get to that full dream. And that in part is making the culture of what we understand St. Louis to be. And so it takes folks like you that are doing the planning and helping folks envision and bring forth that reality that folks want to be able to live in. And that's just all that behind the scenes work, all the networking is just as much a part of St. Louis as anything else that we do. So really appreciate you having you on and sharing your story with us today.
Pleasure's mine. Appreciate it.